Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the top 10 best tips or useful tricks for beginners in Excel. And boy, I wish I would have learned these tips and tricks a lot sooner. It would have saved me a ton of time. Alright, so the first one we're going to talk about is a keyboard shortcut for quick highlighting of cells, right? So say I wanted to highlight this whole group, I can click and drag, but say there's like lots of rows in data where I'd have to sit here and keep dragging and keep dragging and keep dragging, right? So instead of doing that, you can click on the tile you want to start on, Control Shift, and then you can use your arrow keys. So I can go over and it will highlight everything over to the right, and then I hit down and it will highlight everything below that. So if this data kept going on for a long time, I could highlight all of it super quickly. And I could just, then if I click it again, it's going to hit all those empty spaces. Look how far that goes down, all the way down here. And then I can go back up and it'll highlight the bottom. And so that quick highlight keyboard feature is super helpful in when you're manipulating Excel data and things like that. So when you have this highlighted, what you can do is you can copy it. And then what I want to talk about next is the paste special feature within Excel. Just so that you're aware of the different pasting options you can go. Like generally you would just hit Control C for copy and Control V and it would paste it, right? But Excel actually has special paste options, and those options, kind of the basic ones, are put out here, where one, it's just going to paste it generically, right? So it's going to include all the formulas that you might have and everything and all the formatting, or you can post the values, which is just going to post the numbers, right? So if you have formulas, it's just going to post numbers, right? Or just the formulas, you can transpose it, so you can kind of see how that flips, how the names are then at the top and everything like age, bonus, salary, deductions, all that is at the bottom. You can format it differently, and you can go here and hit paste special, and that's going to bring you to all the options it has. So it's just kind of cool to understand, and it helps you manipulate data a little bit faster and can save you a lot of time than manually dragging, clicking, and manipulating it. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is the filter function within Excel, right? And that is super useful when you're filtering large groups of data. And the example I have here today looks like we just have names, age, bonus, salary, deductions, total, and these are blank. And then just kind of this random column and this multiplier thing, which is for this 1.5, which I will talk about later. So the easiest way to do that is to select the range of the data you want to filter. You go to Data tab and you hit Filter, right? And then it'll bring down all of these little drop-down arrows. So then you can filter by name. In this case, you can select people that you want to be included, people that aren't included. Or maybe I just want to show the 33-year-olds in this group, and it looks like we have 2 of them here, right? So it's really easy in filtering through things to find specific information that you're looking for, and is ultimately super useful. And now to get rid of these little arrows or to get rid of the filter, you just unclick that and it'll go back to normal. So for example, if I have the filter applied and let's say I just wanted to look at Brian and Emily here, if I unselect the filter, it's going to bring everything back to how it was originally. So it doesn't actually erase or manipulate data, it just filters it for you, which is super convenient, super nice. All right, number 4 is having to do with column width. So as you've noticed with this data set, it kind of looks like here you can't see this bonus number. It's probably because this needs to be dragged out like that, right? So then you can see this bonus number. So you can manually manipulate these columns to fit, right? Or what I can do is if I double click on this line, so if I just double click here, it's going to fit to the size of the largest item, right? And if I hit deductions, it's going to fit that, right? However, there's an easier way to do it where you can just select all of them and double click, and then it'll manipulate all the columns to the width, right? But say I want every column to be a specific width, same thing, I select all of the columns and I can drag them and they'll all be the same size, right? So say I want them all to be 12.09, then they're all going to be 12.09. So that's super useful when you're looking at data, filtering and things like that. All right, so that's all super basic stuff, but really important for beginners to know. Now the next few tips I have and tricks are a little bit more complex, but very useful nonetheless. So in this data set, we have bonus salary deductions, right? So let's say we want to know the total. So we want to know what the salary plus the bonus minus the deductions, right? So you generally do, what you could do is just like do this plus that minus that, right? Or what you can do is use a formula and say I want to use the sum formula. And now selecting a formula, a lot of times people will go all the way down here, select the formula, double click it, and it will select that formula and tell you what you need to do, right? However, an easier way that's going to save you a lot of time when selecting formulas is you can just type in that formula, and if whatever this is selected on using the up and down arrows, you just hit tab, and that's going to select the formula for you. So a super simple tip or trick, but honestly, super useful. So we'll do the sum of this, and then minus this. Generally, that's a little bit better for like more complex equations, obviously, but you can do that, right? So then we get our total here. So this leads me to the next tip I have, and that is copying and pasting formulas. So a lot of times people will Control C, and they'll just copy this formula. They'll just keep copying it all the way down. So what you can do instead of copying the same formula down or rewriting the formula is this little box in the corner. If you double click that, it's going to copy that same formula and go all the way down, which is extremely useful. That's probably the tip or trick that I use the most, right? So if we like select this random cell, we can see here that the formula is the same. It just continues down throughout this total. Copying this formula, just moving all the cell references one down. All right, so now for this next part, we're going to be using this column, right? And we're going to, for some reason, we're going to take this total and times it by 1.5 just to show this tip. And we have our multiplier here of 1.5, so all we're going to do is take 40,800, and we're going to times that by the multiplier, right? And that is 61,200. And then using that trick from before, we can just double click here, and that goes down, but oh wait, something didn't work out quite right. It looks like we have 0. But it looks like the formula copied, but why is it not correct, right? So if we look at the cell references, what that's going to do is it's going to take this, and then it's going to go below times the multiplier. So in order to prevent that or make the formula correct and how we want it, we need to anchor or lock that cell. And in this case, it would be A3. So what you can do is you can do on PC, on most PCs, the command is FN F4, right? And what that's going to do is automatically add a $sign in front of the A and in front of the 3. And that's going to essentially lock the cell. And so if we then copy our formula down, it's going to be correct. It's going to keep that cell reference in the same spot. And you can also delete the $sign in front, so that way it only locks the column rather than the row. So if we were to only lock that, then we're going to get the same thing before because it's going to keep going down but stay in the same column, if that makes sense. And then vice versa, if we put the $sign in front of the 3, that's going to lock the row, right? So it's not going to move from the row, but it will from the column. So if we were to drag this down, it's going to copy correctly. However, and I'm going to move this over. However, if we were to drag this across, what it's going to do is it's going to take this cell. Since we locked this row, it's not going to move from this row, but dragging it over brings it to the next column. And so knowing how to lock or anchor a cell is super, super useful because it just helps you with formulas, make sure that they're correct and calculated correctly. The next tip I want to talk to you about is another keyboard function, and that is Control tilde. And what that's going to do is on the page that you're on, that's going to show you all the formulas that you have. So that's super useful when you have a huge Excel data set and you don't know how to sift through everything, or you don't know where the formulas are, you don't know what's just an inputted number or what's a formula, and you just have a bunch of raw data. Then it's easy to see where the formulas are and what the formulas consist of. All right, and then if you just hit Control tilde again, then it goes back to normal. All right, so now we're getting down to the final 2 tips and tricks. And the one I'm talking about right now I think is super useful for everyone to know, and that's the text or columns feature. And that is super useful when you need to separate data. So we have this random others tab with all these numbers just kind of 1 through 9, it looks like, right? And what we want to do is we want to put the 1 in a column, the 2 in a column, the 3 in a column, and the 4 in a column. And what we could do is just manually type 1, 2, 3, 4, and just do that for every row. But say we have, 1,000 lines of data, then we're not going to want to manually do that. That's just kind of annoying. So what we can do is use text to columns, and that's going to separate it for us super quickly. So you just want to select the column that you're trying to manipulate, and then you go to data, and you go text to columns here. And it's going to bring up this pop-up menu. So there's kind of 3 steps in getting the text to columns to work. You can work with the delimited, which is going to look for specific things like commas, or you can do a fixed width where you can select where the page break occurs, right? So we'll go with delimited because in this case everything's separated by a comma. We'll hit next, and then we'll say you can choose semicolon, tab, comma, space, or if there's another indicator. But in this case it's just a comma. So then it's going to kind of give you a preview of how it's going to separate everything. So it's just going to separate it like that. We can hit next, and then this is just kind of review or kind of what format we want those to be in, and we'll just have it kind of as general, and we'll hit finish. So then you can see that it's separated all of the information through commas. It got rid of the commas and then separated all the information into different columns, which makes it easier to manipulate or create formulas for. Just a super nice data tool that's super useful to know. I can't tell you how many times this has helped me out. All right, so the last one I want to talk to you about is called freeze pane. And this one is freeze pane, which can be super useful. So in this case, I'm going to select row 3. I'm just going to type in freeze pane, and this will pop up. I can do the freeze pane where it's going to freeze from where I selected. So row 3, so kind of starting at row 1 and 2. And then, or I can select the top row, or I can select the column. So in this case, I'll just do where I'm selected. And then that way, these 2 rows are going to stay in the same spot no matter how far I scroll, which can be super useful in knowing, like, if I have large data sets and I'm all the way down to like 500, I don't have these headings anymore, then I can see them again, right, with the data incorporated. And to undo it, you just type, or you can just go to recently used or search freeze pane, and then you just unfreeze panes, right? And then it's back to normal. So kind of another useful, cool tip that can help you when you're looking at data, just trying to analyze it or helping, things look a little bit nicer. Those are the 10 best tips that I have for you today. Honestly, they've helped me out so much. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. Please subscribe, smash the like button. I appreciate it so much. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.